Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. In honor of Black History Month, we thought we'd pay tribute and showcase some of the great defining Black characters the world has come to love.
In celebration of Black Panther's release, it seemed best to start with some of our MCU favorites. After all, Marvel has created some of the coolest Black heroes known to man.
So, without further delay, let's explore the history of Falcon on Black History Heroes.
Yeah.
Because, Dragon, we were originally supposed to record this on Valentine's Day. And who doesn't love Falcon?
Very simply, everyone loves Falcon, as well as Anthony Mackie, but especially Falcon.
I mean, outside of, hey, his cameo in Ant-Man was a little bit forced. But, gosh darn it, he's likable in that, too. It's just the writing on that. That's the problem. It's
I dare the meanest critic in the world to say something deflammatory against Anthony Mackie without a lynch mob outside of his house. I dare him.
Oh, God. Well, let's not go into critics and lynch mobs, Dragon, because we'll talk about that with Black Panther. Just a little spoiler warning there. But I'm going to warn you, Dragon, Black Panther is going to be the most political podcast we've ever recorded.
Well, after I give you some source material to look at, you're definitely going to agree with that statement, even more so than you already are. But, yeah.
Okay. So Dragon, let's start. Sam Wilson is, of course, our penultimate installment. Of course, this is all building up to our Black Panther, Black History Heroes installment. Importantly, Dragon, Black Panther, my God, let's just take a moment here, folks, as we are in a moment in history with Black History Month and this releasing in February and everything. Black Panther crossed the $200 million opening weekend threshold. It is now the fifth highest opening weekend of all time, behind Avengers, Jurassic World, Star Wars Last Jedi, Star Wars Force Awakens. Dragon, 200 million. The great thing about that is that on Sunday, it was originally, the numbers came in, it was originally it's projected to make around 192. But then on Monday, the actual figures for Sunday came in, and it got bumped up. It got bumped up to 201 million. And Dragon, I don't know. There's just something about that magic number. There's something about that magic 200 plus million opening weekend that it's just we did it. We're here, and I feel like this is a moment for us all to come together. Unfortunately, like I said, there's going to be some conversations to be had during the Black Panther podcast about some ways that some people are reacting to the movie, but I want to kind of save that. Like I said, folks, this is the first time I'm getting political on the podcast, so it's kind of a big sort of pay-per-view event without the pay-per-view.
Yes, I'm sure everyone's just they're presetting their DVRs now that have Tiki go political, I'm sure.
Oh, I know, right? Well, I don't know, Dragon. It is a big deal because I've always had a strict no politics policy on the channel, so I almost feel like I want to put it behind a Patreon wall or something.
Okay, anyway, off of politics, on to sheer awesomeness. Let's talk about Falcon, darn it!
Yeah, Falcon. So, of course, Dragon, let's just get things started with his creation. He was first published in 1969. Importantly, Dragon, he is, let's make this distinction. He is not the first Black hero in comics. That would go to Black Panther. But very importantly, Dragon, and this will be the root of our conversation here, he is the first African-American character in comics, African-American hero in comics. So that is a very clear, kind of mark in the sand to make with Sam Wilson. That's going to very much define him.
Yes, just to backtrack to that for a moment. So again, very appropriate, African-American character appearing in one of the most patriotic of comics, Captain America. He appeared in Captain America number 117. He was created by Stan Lee and Gene Colan in '69. Essentially, the way the creation of Falcon went was very simple, is that Gene Colan, he loved to add diversity into his art. And he pitched an African-American hero concept to Stan Lee. Yeah, because again, we had Black Panther, and that was great, but they wanted to kind of bring something. Let's just say, kind of bring something stateside, if you will. It was kind of like let's bring more. It's kind of like what eventually we had. The big movement. I forget if it was starting. This, I mean, this is in '69, so the point is late '60s, if not just the very beginning of the '70s. In comics, DC and Marvel alike. Famously with DC, though, we have a lot of we're introducing black characters in the comics, which at that time was unheard of for the most part. It was very racy and unheard of, and particularly with the famous issue of Green Arrow, Green Lantern. I think it was Hard Traveling Heroes. I can't quite recall what the run was. The point is, you had one of the most famous panels in all comics. Where in that, and again, it's either very late '60s, early '70s, you have you have like a very low rent neighborhood, and Hal Jordan is confronted by the most famously from Neil Adams, the most realistically drawn black man you've ever seen in
Oh,
comics.
jeez.
And this is the first time
saying that, he's not messing around.
Well, yeah, I'm saying like he drew, and everyone agrees unanimously that it was for that time again most realistically it was what made Neil Adams famous. He drew faces as they existed,
right, yeah.
And again, it's like the first time that was really represented. He confronted Green Lantern about kind of an unconscious kind of bias they had going on. Says, "Hey, Green Lantern, where were you? You help. I hear about you. You go around space. You help all the blue skins, the gray skins, all the other various skin colors of alien races, but you done nothing for the black skins." It's a big moment in comics. It's a huge bell that is rung, man. And at that, I'm saying while you have that going on in DC, you also have kind of you have I know you also have kind of a slow but sure attitude kind of going in Marvel, where you have we have more and more background characters who are it's a process that's building, where we have more black extras in comics essentially. But again, when we Gene Colan is kind of getting to the place of, what, we kind of do that in the background. Let's have an African American hero, because we haven't really had a hero since Black Panther. Let's get one going there. And Stan Lee, generally, I get a sense that Gene Colan really ran with the character, but Stan Lee also, again, just kind of going with kind of the collective consciousness and kind of doing the opposite of what society's doing, and it worked wonders for him, essentially. Like, hey, sidekicks usually work with the heroes. I'm going to take a teenager and make him the main hero. Call him Spider-Man. That's usually Stan Lee's thinking. In this case, Stan, he wants to reflect kind of Vietnam and kind of the civil rights movement of the time. So kind of reflecting Vietnam through Iron Man, and reflecting kind of the civil rights movement of the time. So basically agreeing with Gene Colan. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do something like that. And Gene Colan kind of runs with it, and they kind of flesh out together. Like, okay, well, let's pair him with I assume Stanley's maybe the one with the notion of let's pair him with Captain America. Let's kind of introduce him through the book there, and then Gene Colan kind of ran with it. Now, beyond that, Sam Wilson. So Sam Wilson's created. Sam Wilson, he's kind of in the same boat of a character like Hawkeye, who has a really obscure origin, let's say.
He's got a bonkers origin story, Dragon. His character kind of reminds me of Luke Cage in the regard of, for a certain period of time, you could fit him right into that kind of like crazy blaxploitation genre.
In a way, yes. But here's the thing: like Falcon was introduced. It's not like Hawkeye was just kind of a simplistic, like, hey, there's a guy in the circus, and he's just like, hey, it's kind of a circus performer gone superhero. That's really the genesis of Hawkeye. And he runs in Iron Man, like, hey, I can become a superhero too. In the case of Falcon, he has a very complicated, convoluted story to work with, and how he's introduced to Captain America. Essentially, is to boil it down here, the Falcon technically has two origins. The first one, the one he's introduced with, essentially is Cap. Folks, I'm not making this up. I swear to you. It's the 60s. It's the late 60s. Cap has his mind switched with the Red Skull, and he's on an island called, I think it's called the Exiles. It's like an island filled with these characters called Exiles who are just kind of stranded. I believe the majority of them are stranded ex-Nazis, hence the Red Skull kind of connection of it all. So the point is, we have a lot of kind of men at a time, or men kind of like click into a bygone time. They're stuck on this island, and Falcon, Sam Wilson, the idea, Sam Wilson, he's a kid who grew up in Harlem. He's got a really interesting backstory where, he's he kind of has a vaguely Pigeon Man connect, Tiki, in that he grew up on the roofs of Harlem, and you had a kind of had.
I was kind of noticing that myself. Like he's almost sort of like if Pigeon Man was a superhero. Like Pigeon Man's backstory would fit right into that. You know what I mean? Right into that mythos.
Yeah, I mean his father's murdered, and I forget, I know both of his parents died. I just forget at which point. I know he had a really rough upbringing, and kind of his solace was kind of going on the rooftops, and he kind of bonded, if not with the pigeons. I know eventually he bonded with the hawk, because that's hence with the falcon. Sorry, he basically takes up falconry. He has the glove and everything, and that's how he gets his name. And famously in the comics, Falcon does have a sidekick who he did even bring into the MCU, Red Wing.
Mm-hmm.
Is his pet falcon, and essentially in the first issue, he kind of makes his way to the island because basically someone was looking for work, and he kind of took up work on the island, and basically put his falconry skills to the test, and he basically assists Captain America in that very convoluted story, and Cap thanks him and he invites him to come with him and kind of join him. So essentially,
now the second backstory, Dragon.
Yeah, this is where things get complicated. And again, I'm telling you, like island of like excommunicated Nazis. That's
yeah,
one.
This is where things go off the rails here, folks. Strap in.
All right, so essentially, I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible, folks.
Just sit right back, and you'll hear a tale.
So, essentially, Falcon is. They tried to retcon that origin because they thought it was a little out there, and they tried to do another thing with it. And
they thought that was a little out there.
That's what I'm saying. They thought the island thing was out there.
So that was a little out there.
I swear to God. So they try to retcon, and retcons are a thing that's common in comics, but in the grand scheme, and this is why you always have to just take all of comics with a grain of salt, because everything's happened in a comic. You always have to make your own continuity, because they kind of left and right, they'll try to pave over things, but sometimes they'll bring them back. And in this case, Sam Wilson, either like in an attempt of a retcon where they say, okay, none of that happened, here's the new origin of Falcon, then they try to acknowledge it, saying, okay, so both stories happened, but it's now a split personality, where essentially...
Oh, no.
Okay, so essentially Sam Wilson, he grew up as Snap Wilson. So Snap Wilson...
And this is where kind of like the Luke Cage of it all comes in, Dragon. I could totally see Snap Wilson as a Luke Cage bad guy.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I don't lose anyone here. Okay, just to put it simply, so basically what we have in the MCU where Sam Wilson, he helps out veterans at the clinic and everything, where he's a really nice guy, he's a social worker essentially. In the comics, he was a nice social worker. They made him like a really cool guy, but a cool guy who found out that, oh my God, I had a split personality that the Red Skull kind of put in me. Basically kind of the Red Skull revealed to him, tormented him by saying, hey, remember your other personality, that you were Snap Wilson. Snap Wilson being the very blaxploitation, as basically a negative stereotype of he's like a con man criminal that was, again, like his name's Snap. He's like an amateur mobster on the street almost. He's basically a kind of a Harlemite gone bad. That's essentially what Snap Wilson was, and the gimmick was that, again, there are a lot of messy retcons, folks. I might be screwing up myself, and the point is Snap Wilson was a negative stereotype that they kind of said, okay, Red Skull was playing mind games with him to show him that, okay, this you were this guy, which means secretly you're a bad guy, and that personality's coming back. Ha ha ha. And the important thing to is that years later we finally got rid of all of the craziness, just saying, hey, Sam, don't worry, Snap Wilson, we found out that was all fake. You don't have to worry about that. That wasn't you.
Oh, good.
Like the Red Skull just literally put all of that.
Clear that up.
Like the Red Skull just put all of that kookiness in your head, so like all of it was fake. Don't worry about it.
Man, I mean, Dragon, it's just like comic book writers. Comic book writers. That's all I have to say, Dragon. Just those 3 words.
I mean, honestly, and again, you can't fault any individual. You gotta fault just a right. It's more the fad of. It's like the ever-changing nature of comics, where again it's more continuity than a writer's fault.
I hear you. I just it would just be such a confusing terrain to navigate as a writer.
Certainly. And honestly, my theory as to why they just kind of paved over, aside from the ridiculousness of it, I think the main reason they changed it is because this was during the point where Falcon eventually graduated to becoming Captain America, and they realized, hey, Falcon's really big in the movies, the MCU. He's real popular. And if people were to look into the Falcon comics, they went to those early days, and we want to get new readers onto the new books that are a little more kind of, they're slowly but surely becoming more like the movies. We don't want to lose anyone with all this Snap Wilson malarkey. So we're just gonna, so basically, we'll just pave over that so people can come in fresh. And okay, this is very much like what we see in the movie. Okay, we took the good parts from the background, just like the social worker aspect. He has a pet falcon. He's friends with Cap. All that stuff we'll keep that, and we'll just move forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially kind of all the kind of the creation-y stuff. Let's talk about kind of the legacy. Let's kind of bridge into any additional legacy of this guy. Why is Falcon?
Well, I mean, do you want to get into the background of him becoming Cap? Because I feel like that is a big part of his legacy that I don't want to kind of skip over in the background, Dragon.
Well, yeah, sure. I was just going to build.
I guess we didn't really discuss this in the pre-planning.
Yeah, why don't we build to that for a moment? Let's just build to that. So, of course, as we went over a little, is that, of course, famously, big claim to fame Falcon has. He's the first African American, emphasis on American, superhero. Which, again, being paired with Captain America is a fun little. It's kind of a fun little thing there.
I feel like, and of course, Dragon with the legacy, and I feel like a lot of it is going to be well represented in terms of how he is in the MCU. But he's just a very supportive guy in terms of just someone who's an everyman who's on Captain America's side. You know what I mean? I feel like that's an important role that he plays. It's kind of like he represents someone where it's like you don't have to have the super soldier serum to rise to Cap's strength and to fight alongside Cap and be an equal ally to Cap.
Yeah, the thing I'll point out here that I think, I'm sorry, I don't want to jump into that too far here. Let's just say an element I really like with, I agree with you full-heartedly, Tegan, for reasons I'll explain later on. Yeah, it is a great quality of Falcon. He's a regular guy who is kind of inspired. It basically kind of represents us, the reader, in a way of like, okay, man, we can really kind of march
again, Dragon. There's just the MCU has just done such a wonderful job of, bringing such a heart to that character. So I'm anxious to get to the MCU stuff with Falcon because I'm kind of going with my blinders on when it comes to comic Falcon, but yeah, like you said, definitely the emphasis on African American is very strong with Falcon because, him being so tied to Captain America is, it's definitely an empowering thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, what I'm saying with that is that you have an undercurrent of patriotism with a black character, and that we have kind of our first black character who's being kind of representing kind of like a good guy, even in there's always the American dream story, like if someone is. The American dream many times is represented as an underdog story, and you can look at looking at kind of how far in literature and just in media and everything, how black characters have kind of gone to being current over the years becoming increasingly more and more well represented, and you can always track that from the very beginnings of film, television, radio, you name it, to especially to your 70s era, like when you get you're All in the Families and your Jeffersons and everything. It's really starting to represent in terms of writing and just kind of representing characters. In comics, when we have this again, we're showing a character in a very heroic light, and one of the elements that again they brought to the films that we have, and one of these crazy backgrounds for Falcon is that again, it's a guy who has issues growing up in a bad part of town. And despite that, he's trying to help others. He's a nice guy who's trying to, again, in a way.
Think about that, Dragon. Like I keep saying, is that really, for all we know, the Sam Wilson of the MCU could have a Snap Wilson background to him. Because all we know about Sam Wilson is that he has kind of a dark past from the military that he doesn't really like to talk about, but he kind of uses it to help others. You know what I mean? So that's what makes that's what's fun about Falcon, is that he's sort of like I don't want to call him a blank slate, but he's almost kind of like an avatar for he's a great recruitment tool. I can say that much, Dragon. Like he's almost a better recruitment tool than Captain America would be, because Captain America is kind of like almost in your Uncle Sam vein of the perfect American, Whereas Falcon is just like, hey, sign up for the military and you can be like this cool guy. Who knows? You might even be selected to wear a pair of wings. Wouldn't that be dandy?
Yeah, Yankee Doodle and all that. Yes. But yeah, I mean, I like that he's just he's a regular guy with like regular problems. Who again, he's just in his own way, even with or without the wings. He's a guy helping inner city youths. And again, as we see when we delve into more of the military stuff, as the years go on, and especially when we get to the movies, he's helping veterans out. So again, he's just very much he's always a guy trying to help others, and getting into the world of superheroes, a guy who's trying to help kind of a living legend in Captain America. And importantly, with that, the bridge to my next big point with this is that he's never the famous thing with Falcon. Another big thing with Falcon is that he was never the black sidekick. He was never like the token black sidekick. He was Cap's partner. He was never like you never had like, okay, he's like another version of Iron Man. No, this guy was distinct. He had his own gimmick. He was very very different. He's not an eagle. He's not like a bald eagle, like ridiculous gimmick. No, he's got a falcon wings, and yeah, he's got his own quirks. And it was never like a question. Like the guy doesn't scream patriotism, but with the outfit. But he was just the guy who was there, and you recognized, oh man, this is another capable hero working with Cap here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up, Dragon. That's a really solid point. Is that I feel like. I feel like there's a lot of an interesting kind of thing I want to bring up here is sort of the differences between War Machine and Falcon. And there are many. War Machine, of course, is... I'm sorry, I don't mean to like steer the conversation in an entirely different direction or anything. I promise you I'll kind of circle back to your point. But War Machine is... the difference between War Machine and Falcon is War Machine is much more militant, right? Like he's much more kind of like go along with the flow of what his upper servicemen need him to do. Whereas Falcon is kind of like Falcon will improvise and play by his own rules, but he's got the, he's kind of more in the interest of having his allies back than, achieving the mission all the way, like, I don't know. Like I'm sorry.
Essentially, I think I was trying to help you out here. Is that I think Falcon is more like the no man left behind type of soldier. That's very much what Falcon.
Exactly. Where War Machine, like I said, is very militant, very kind of like get the job done.
Yeah. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about his fellow soldier, but it means like he's the guy leading the mission, where Falcon's the guy carrying out the mission, but not he's the guy not he's not. This is probably a poor word for he's not castrated by orders, let's say. He's not a guy who's like, he's not held back by the orders. Like he'll break rank if it means, saving his fellow soldier. Where War Machine, you get a sense, is not a guy who will break rank, but he will, the instant the mission is done, he will go back to make things right.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, just to circle back around with my point with War Machine
Sure.
Well, War Machine on his own is definitely a singular character, right? He's had his own career in Marvel.
Yeah.
I feel like he stands in the shadow of Iron Man more so than Falcon does with Cap.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like...
play a War Machine. I'm just, War Machine, of course, is bred from the same exact technology as Iron Man. He's Iron Man's best friend, from the get-go. Of course, he's always, as we discussed, he's kind of got that militant kind of standing in line attitude to him. So I feel like Falcon, even though Falcon doesn't necessarily have the same sort of, like Falcon's got his own things going for him for sure, but I don't feel like he's had quite as big of a resume as War Machine has, but I feel like in terms of a personality, he stands out more.
Yeah, well, I'll jump to. I was going to make this point a little later, but of course we're kind of talking about Rhodey and Sam here. I'll kind of bring it up. I apply this mostly to the MCU, but I mean, I think it still remains true to the comics, particularly in like kind of some of the stuff that's going to transition us into where we kind of go with Falcon in the comics. I think the really cool thing, if you look at War Machine and you look at Falcon, is that, and it's something that Tiki and I have been kind of hitting upon when we talked about War Machine. It was a point I really love to make, is that if you look at sorry, I'm trying to figure out what it is here. Oh yes. So War Machine is very much, he's like he would be representative of the of Captain America, of the black man's dream of becoming Captain America, where Falcon is, where Sam is, he's the Steve Rogers side of that. Where again, Rhodey encapsulates kind of the icon of like, look what you can aspire to be. He's very much just kind of like, he's the military man and kind of the symbol for the military, especially in the Iron Patriot phase, let's say. And on the other side of that, you have the guy who represents kind of the where I can identify, I can see like Steve Rogers, I can see the guy the guy who has the good heart underneath all, the guy who cares about his fellow man, the guy who's like he's all about doing the right thing. I can see that very much so in Sam Wilson. Just he's a guy before he's a super soldier. I see the super soldier in I see the kind of the iconic super soldier in Rhodey, where I see kind of the Steve Rogers character, the moral Steve Rogers side you see with Falcon. And a big moment that that shows with Falcon is that Falcon's always been a character with the ability and potential. There's always been someone with ability and potential, and enough of that to be trusted to take the mantle. And in the comic, I looked into it again just to make sure I had this right. Falcon, he of course ascends to the role of Captain America, and I think what's important with that is that Bucky, he took over being Cap after Steve Rogers died in the comics for the first time.
Oh.
He didn't die multiple times. Just saying, after he died, but then he came back and he had to be taken.
Like Goku Dragon.
No, he didn't die a second time though. He just died
I'm
once.
just kidding. Seriously, if anyone's gonna be Goku in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's got to be Cap, though.
Yeah, you're right about that. Okay, regardless, I think.
I'm sorry, really quick. Who would be Vegeta? Does that make Tony Stark Vegeta?
Yeah, technically, yeah.
All right. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, I don't know, mate. It's either Tony or Thor. Tony or Thor. I mean, I think character-wise,
I was kind of leaning a little bit towards Doctor Strange as kind of an out of left field choice.
I was saying like Prince of all Saiyans, King of Asgard. I don't know. Anyway.
Right. Anyways.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. What I'm getting at is that Falcon's always been a character of ability and potential, and again, what's cool is, and I think one of the coolest representations of that is Bucky took over being Cap because he had the longest relationship with Steve Rogers. But importantly in the comics, Sam, after displaying his heroism, and there's this great moment in the comics I could easily see adapted into a movie somewhat, is where Steve Rogers, not the specific events necessarily, because basically there's this moment in the comics that kind of solidifies Steve's choice here, where Falcon kind of saves the day single-handedly, risks himself, and he almost dies. And they kind of parody Avengers a bit, where basically Falcon kind of, he saves the day and he falls and he's caught not by the Hulk but by Iron Man, a very Avengers-like style. And he goes like, not a wormhole, but he goes up really high and he tosses a bomb like into space essentially, and he comes crashing down and he's saved by Iron Man. But again, seemingly he had died in that moment, and that's when it all comes into focus for Cap. Where let's just say Cap was sort of he was indisposed, and he realized, Falcon's a guy who's always been by my side, he's always helped me, and this is a guy who's more Steve Rogers than he's not a super soldier. All he has is kind of Stark tech wings. In this case, like vibranium wings that saved his life, technically.
I really like that detail in the comics, by the way, that the wings are Wakandan.
I know it's awesome. He's got the vibranium wings. Like that's. But, he's just the guy.
I feel like that adds an extra layer to the Black history stuff.
It does, and that's cool. And yeah, we'll get into. And there's always room for him getting an upgrade in the movies to get some vibranium. Well, by all means, especially. In the
oh God, Dragon, that would be. Oh my God. Oh please. Oh, I want that. That.
Anyway, my point is, after seeing that sacrifice of just like a Steve Rogers type guy, no super soldier serum, no nothing, a guy who's always been there to help, and he kind of realizes, Sam, you've never asked anything of us. You've always, done the heroic thing, and it's time you kind of essentially be able to live your own life, essentially be able to, basically rewarding Sam for his faith, essentially, in a way. And my point is, while Bucky kind of took over the role out of like a familial, he deserves the mantle passed down to him. I love that Steve chose Sam. That was always the important delineation, and that's why both of these guys are worthy. Bucky has the connection to Captain America, but if Steve chose Sam, he didn't choose Bucky, and I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, and yeah, I mean Falcon, he embodies how Cap inspires and helps people. Again, just not the super, not the super soldier things that Bucky could do in the role, but again, like kind of the core philosophy of Captain America is represented through Sam. That's why he's a perfect fit for Captain, for the new guy wearing the Captain America mantle in the comics, by the way.
And of course, folks, with the Black history of it all, that's got to be empowering. Seeing the Black man under the Captain America mantle, a Black man representing all of America. Like, yeah, that's some good stuff right there.
And again, it's kind of cool that we've had that with both War Machine and with Falcon. And again, as I stated before, I think you get to see kind of those layers kind of applied to them, like how they are kind of represented in different ways. Again, kind of the like look what you can become at the top of the rank here, and look what you can become if you believe in the American dream, which is essentially at its core, helping your fellow guys, making sure people, protecting freedoms and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, there's one other thing, Tegan, this is important before we move on. I'll be remiss if I don't bring it. There's a huge thing with Black history in regards to the Falcon, is that there's a very important moment with Falcon in the comics. And it's in like the early comics, like I guess the 70s for Falcon. Falcon, there was this really shady guy who was basically putting together an Avengers team on the side. Basically, it was like some guy was like in middle management, essentially, kind of assembling a team. For the Avengers had the West Coast. I believe it was the West Coast Avengers. Might have been a different branch of the Avengers, but the point is, Falcon was invited on the team, but he found out. He learned that he was invited for the team purely for diversity, for the sake of diversity.
Oh,
and
ooh.
and Falcon, after the mission at hand, because it was something apocalyptic that was breaking out. Falcon famously he quit. He refused to be token. That was a huge thing for Falcon, and that kind of always is looking. So I mean, that's the thing. Falcon.
I like that the comic kind of directly calls out certain other companies and certain other characters. Like, hey, we're not doing this, Wade. We're proud of it.
Yeah, hey, I mean, it's cool to be an Avenger, and I'm not joining the team. If it's just going to be just purely because I'm different, that's no way I want to be here on my own merits, not because. And again, that's kind of what. I mean, you look at a moment like that, and you look at kind of where we're at with Falcon now. I think that's very impressive. Seeing a guy who he's pulled himself up by the bootstraps, very much so. A guy with his own with integrity, and with a guy who's proved himself time and time again on the sidelines. A guy who's never asked to be, he's never asked for the mantle. He's never again, not throwing shade at Bucky in the comics. Again, Bucky took over out of a familial sense. Just that's what Steve would have wanted. I got to avenge my friend. I got to keep on the legacy going there. And Falcon he's a guy not asking for it. And I think that it's kind of the age-old thing of the guy in the room who doesn't ask for the job many a time is the guy to go to for the job,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So again, Falcon's there's so many nice things we say about him, and never has a shield and Falcon wings look good together than on him as the current Captain America.
Okay, so Dragon, let's get into the MCU, and in order to introduce him, I think we need to look on your left.
On your left.
On your left.
Oh God!
Don't you say it! Don't you say it!
On your left.
Dragon, honestly, the more I rewatch Winter Soldier, not just one of the best introductions in the MCU, this might be in my top 10 favorite introductions to a character in cinematic history.
It's pretty good.
I mean, I know that might sound hyperbolic, but just the way that it says everything that it needs to say in very few words, except for the whole on your left, because visually we see that Sam Wilson, he's a fighter, he's he's struggling, but he's not going to give up. And yet Captain America, he's literally running circles around him, but that's where that friendship and dynamic comes from. And, as we see after the famous run, Captain and, Cap and Sam, they become friends instantly, Dragon. The chemistry is just dynamic between the two of them.
I think something just occurred to me in this moment, and I alluded to it before, but now it's clicking for me because now we're in my wheelhouse, folks. Now we're in what maybe falling.
Yeah, mine too.
Now we're in Winter Soldier and the MCU of all of it here, and I tell you, something's clicked with me. I'm almost getting emotional over it. How beautiful it is. It's the fact that in with the on your left scene. And that's the first thing we see in the movie, and looking at it here is that if, as I said before, if Falcon is representative of Steve Rogers, then very much like we saw all over the place, and very literally a scene in First Avenger where Steve Rogers, there he's running, he's getting tired out, and the whole flagpole scene from First Avenger where he gets to ride with Peggy Carter back to the base camp because he thinks differently than the rest of the soldiers. It's a scene where they're running around, they're literally running circles, and very much like Steve Rogers, Falcon in comparison to Captain America, he's performing like Steve Rogers did back in that, back then. So again, just that moment, it's like right off the bat, it's like I think Steve kind of gives it. Oh, I remember when I was like that.
yeah.
Somewhat. So again, it's another symbol of him kind of as that as Steve Rogers before being a super soldier, but still he's the guy with the right stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my God, there's so many great things to say. The introduction in Winter Soldier, he's helping Steve get over the loss of Bucky and vice versa, and that these are two guys who they're trying to move. Their arc is moving past the war. They're both going about it in different ways. He donning the suit and the shield and then helping out Black Widow on Shield missions, and with Falcon, he's on the ground level. He's helping veterans kind of adjust to the return home. Like getting in bed when the bed feels like a marshmallow, all that stuff. And again, I love that both are equally valid. Both are very both are like it's kind of current kind of espionage stuff versus just kind of the realistically what Cap's real arc of the movie is. Well, again, all that's fun and exhilarating and very much like an action movie in the best of ways. Yet at the same time, you have that really great undercurrent of Steve's arc to the whole movie is getting past the long war, the long coldest winter of essentially Winter Soldier.
And of course, he's doing that literally like pop culture reference by pop culture reference, and that's a beautiful thing that kind of bonds them as well that we see.
I don't know how many people realize this, but Winter Soldier is not just because the character's name is Bucky's name is the Winter Soldier. It's because it's actually an old term for a soldier, which means these are the soldiers who fight the longest, coldest winters, and they kind of have to, they face like kind of the biggest, most harrowing challenges of their lives. In this case, Steve kind of getting past the war and dealing with the loss of his friend returning, all the trauma he kind of suffers. His world being upended in that movie. So that's the thing. I love that Falcon is there to facilitate and kind of have that arc, but again, subtly though, because again, it's represented through their friendship. But you have those moments where Steve is still he's in the hallway during that veteran scene. He's taking it in. So yeah.
Okay. So shall we get to overall appeal then?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, Anthony Mackie is perfect. He just is. No, but he's perfect.
I mean, he radiates charisma, but at the same time, he's got that everyman quality to him. He's got kind of like hey, I could be like that guy. I want to grab a beer with that guy.
Yeah, there's an instant and believable friendship between Steve and Sam right at the beginning, as we see with the on your left scene, recommending Trouble Man along with all the other pop culture references. Again, right off the bat, these two guys, that charisma just permeates between these two guys.
And Dragon, I feel like probably my favorite moment. I don't want to lump this in with defining moment, but I feel like it explains the overall appeal of Falcon so well that I kind of want to reference it here. Basically, in the second half of Winter Soldier, when Romanoff and Cap go to him for help, and basically they're just wanting a place to stay, and Falcon's like, no, I need to be out on the front lines with you. And Cap, of course, being the kind-hearted Steve Rogers that he is, concerned with Falcon as a person, he's like, no, you've served your time and you had a good reason for getting out. And Dragon, what's the line?
Dude, Captain America's asking for my help. There's no better reason to get back into it.
And tell me that is not just it sums up everything about why we love Falcon, Dragon. It's just like, because Falcon, like we've been saying, folks, he's the everyman. He's the guy who you could picture yourself being like. He's kind of like the realistic goal for herodom.
He is, and that's what I'm saying with the introduction from Winter Soldier as well. Again, these are guys who are helping each other at, again, very profound ways, because with overall, one of the great things about that friendship between him and Cap is that, again, you have that Riley connection, which again is the reason he got out. He lost his friend, and again that makes them kind of, they're both filling a void in their friendship. Of, he lost Bucky and he lost Riley, and again it's I don't know, it's really nice, and Cap
Bucky
appreciating
Barnes, he died, and he's never, ever, ever coming back, ever.
Darn you, Gary Sinise. Darn you. Anyway, I will still defend that. I will still defend that moment.
No,
that
no, Greg, I just like they made it such a fun joke. All right.
But you see what I'm saying? I mean, the Riley connection is nice, that he lost his wingman, and what's so great too is that in that photo, if I'm remembering correctly, I forget who was on whose left, but regardless, you could still see it as either he's on Steve's left or Riley, Riley replaced by Steve is perpetually on his left. And throughout the film, they're when Cap wakes up in that hospital bed, he is on Falcon's left, and I thought that was
symbolism.
That's the thing, like, he's just there. They're there for each other, and
visual consistency.
So I mean, basically, if I had a bullet point and said, Falcon, he's very cool, and he's a guy who keeps getting better every time we see him. He keeps getting better, and we just we keep the ball rolling with him in the very best of ways. So it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on. Let's
yeah. Of course. Let's go to the growth. All right, so let's hit it. So, of course, I feel like we've already talked blue in the face about how awesome his introduction is, Dragon.
So
go ahead.
So Winter Soldier, and again, this Falcon overall, he's like one of the best supporting characters in the MCU, and he's very much like one of the best kind of support nets Cap has, especially in that movie. So Winter Soldier, he's the supportive new friend who he's awesome, and he's very capable in the field. We see that much in Winter Soldier, and of course he has like the awesome kind of, I never said I was a pilot. Oh, I never said I was a pilot. Where he's pararescue and with giant giant mechanical wings that fly.
My favorite part of that moment. Wait, hold on. I'll get to it with defining moments actually.
So then we have then we go to Ultron. Ultron has a small role. Because he only has two moments in Ultron, but I really like him because one, he just appears at the end like he's part of the new Avengers team that's being put together. But he has a really impactful moment for me where we pick up where we left off with him, Winter Soldier, where he's been chasing down leads for Bucky. All of them have gone cold. And there's this really nice thing where he puts things in perspective. He puts Cap's arc in perspective for Ultron. I always thought that was really nice, where he puts that little. It's like a little conversation that again continues their friendship that's going on about the whole I could have helped you take down that Hydra bases. Really? Oh, I'm sorry, Sam. Next time I'll call you there. Say, hey, I'm just talking tough. Don't worry about me. Then they get to like a casual conversation about, so you're looking for an apartment in Brooklyn still? Yeah, but it's a no luck because every place in Brooklyn's taken, and it's just, they hit upon with that Brooklyn conversation, say, oh, it's no place like home, and that's Cap's underlining arc in Ultron, which I really loved, is that Captain America is trying to come to grips with, hey, is my home on the battlefield, or am I still that kid from Brooklyn? That's really, can I have a life? Can I have a life despite being a man out of time? That's really what again, I love that Falcon gets the ball rolling on that story in the very beginning with that scene. And of course, by the end, all of his faith is rewarded, becoming an Avenger, no strings attached, as juxtaposed from the West Coast Avengers. Then we see him as an Avenger in Ant-Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great cameo. Just put it simply, it's a great cameo. He's fun yet respectable. We don't make him a fool in getting defeated by Ant-Man. We have a great kind of running gag with it, as he calls Scott Tic Tac, and it's hilarious.
Yeah. And, I don't know. It is kind of the one thing in Ant-Man that's sort of like, hey, look, there's a larger universe going on outside of this whole thing.
But look at it this way, Tiki. It's the first. Again, well, we're kind of getting into this with Defenders on the small screen. on the big screen, short of, and again, I don't care what anyone says. If someone tries to count the whole, like, hey, Tony Stark showed up at the end credit scene for Incredible Hulk, where he's in the same bar as General Ross. I say boo on those people, because come on, this is the first, and Ant-Man's the first example of a real, like, these, two heroes. It's like a one-on-one crossover, not like a whole, like, not a team, not an Avengers team up, not like, hey, we're introducing Hawkeye. No, I'm talking like we're introducing Hawkeye and Thor, but we're not gonna call him by name.
I mean, what about Winter Soldier with like Cap and Black Widow?
Huh. Well, I don't know, because that's more like that's in the story. I'm talking about like,
also got like Nick Fury, and you've got the team up with Falcon too.
Well, I'm saying like two different books coming together. That's like very much, that's still.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll agree with you there. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like something that's really realistic, like two worlds, like two comics like crossing over in terms of like an Ant-Man and Falcon, like two very juxtaposed, characters kind of crossing over in each other's books mano-a-mano instead of like a whole team affair. And again, you can even look at it with that. It's kind of a team affair with Winter Soldier. You have multiples.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm getting at. So again, that's a big first for kind of the MCU with Falcon. Look at that.
That's a good point. That's good. I hadn't really ever thought of it like that before, Dragon. I'm glad you brought that up.
Then, of course, we have Civil War, which very much is kind of our payoff to a lot of stuff we put.
Civil War Falcon is so good. I first of all, I really love the butting heads dynamic between him and War Machine throughout this, him and Rhodey.
Yeah,
because it just goes to show you, Dragon. Of course, just it's like they're so diametrically opposed throughout the movie, and I love it. It's it's very much kind of two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways, because they're both obviously both being African American, both being military men, both both serving kind of I don't want to say serving, but
they're both coming from the same place, but again with different.
And they're both closely tied to like a mainline Avenger.
Yeah. So they are very much, I think they're like lieutenants in the Civil War, if you will. They're very much lieutenants in the Civil War. Like these are guys supporting our main guys, and again, very much kind of ethical reminders for each are coming from. And again, by the end of the movie, they are both still on that same side. Again, Rhodey, as we mentioned, despite having been essentially crippled at the end of Civil War, he still doesn't regret his decision. He's still very much in agreement with Tony. Of course, Falcon never wavered in his support of Cap, and again, by some moments we'll get into with that, but with Civil War, I guess we continue to see that he's got Cap's back, which classically is Falcon again as the ultimate support net for characters, particularly Captain America. He helps save Bucky, which is big, and that was his mission statement at the end of Winter Soldier. I lost my friend. I'm going to help you get your friend back. And again, even at risk of he's kind of the guy I kind of replaced. I'm going to help you get that guy back. And again, just very much again,
right.
Falcon is everything, including selfless. That's the thing you got to get Falcon. He's the most selfless character in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to he has a great back and forth with Bucky, which delights me to know.
And I love that it's like the old friend and the new friend meeting each other and hitting it off. Isn't that a great feeling, Dragon? I've had that happen in real life before. Like, hey, you're even more. Like I like you even better than the old guy.
It is, but I also read it as on a rewatch. It kind of occurs to me that while that is there very much so, I do kind of see it as Bucky's being as close as he is to Steve. The guys are practically brothers almost, where it's kind of like the brother meeting the friend. Like we're Falcon's his best friend, dealing with dealing with the brother almost, where it's like hey, it's like the little brother almost.
Oh God, it totally is that.
So it is kind of that where again, there's a closeness there. There's always going to be a bigger, like a deeper bond with Bucky, because again, Bucky was there when Steve lost his parents. So Bucky's going to be very important to Cap. Like there's a 90-year friendship there technically. And but Falcon Falcon is there for him in every other way, and he was there when Bucky wasn't for the most part. Well, ever since Cap woke up, and after the Avengers, Falcon was there for him. He filled that void, so he kind of fills in that spacing in between there. And also with Falcon, again, we do more. We have these great wing tricks for him, and we finally give him Red Wing. He finally has his little Falcon sidekick.
Yes, and I love how annoyed Black Widow is with Red Wing.
I just love that he treats it like a pet, and he's like, cute. Pet him, he's cute. It's oh my god, I love it. It's great. We've done everything, and
by
Red
his
Wing,
name, I am not naming that thing. Come on.
pet him, he's cute, and just think it. Like, I love how he uses Red Wing to slam an Iron Man's face, and it's awesome. So basically, what we keep doing with Falcon, I think the thing they track too, and Anthony Mackie has spoken this, and it's quite funny, is that you'll notice with each movie, Falcon is more and more off the page with each film. He's more red on the costume, more red and white, and again now he's got Red Wing. And the thing Anthony Mackie's been championing is he wants the red and white costume so much.
Yeah, I could see it. There's no reason not to give that to him.
Well, now, especially after Black Panther, there's nothing stopping it. But I heard that Anthony Mackie spoke to. He wants it, but I don't know how much he was joking about this. He said, he wants it, but the bosses at Marvel say no, we don't want to risk the spandex, because he basically wore spandex with vibranium wings. So, but he still wore pretty much a kind of a spandex red and white costume.
Look, after Black Panther, anything's possible.
I know anything's possible.
Black Panther is like a whole new frontier.
I'm saying like Avengers 4, Falcon, it depends like what he might be adopting a certain mantle, but if he's not, then they could easily give him the costume.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, it's kind of where it's kind of the growth that we see with Falcon in the MCU, but some of the big moments that we've seen that really define all the great stuff we've been saying about Falcon so far, or the moments in the MCU that really exemplify Sam Wilson.
Okay, well, of course, two that have already been brought up on your left, obviously.
The support group meeting, the Veterans Hospital, and he has that great statement that he says there. With
I'm kind of saving some of that stuff for Impact today, though, Dragon. So.
Oh, sure. All right, sure.
Yeah. Right. And then, of course, the great line, dude, I'm helping Captain America. What better way is there to get back in? But more importantly, Dragon, of course, I love the introduction to the wings, not just the whole, I never said I was a pilot, but how that plays out exactly with, with the whole thing with Cap bullying the guy to the edge of the ledge, the guy calling Cap out, like, you're not going to do this to me, you're Steve Rogers.
Yeah, Jasper Sitwell, who I remember, he's kind of the anti-Coulson. That's what's funny about Sitwell. I thought he was going to be the new Coulson, but they just they subverted that one.
And then, of course, Steve's just like, oh, no, you're absolutely right, buddy. I wouldn't do that to you. She would.
Like when he just kicks him off the roof. And
also, then, of course, I love the casual conversation that goes on. Like, what about Diane from accounting? The lip piercing? No, I'm not ready for that.
I love that. I love that Steve knows the name too. Lillian? Lilith?
Yeah.
Yeah, lip piercing. I'm not ready.
Of course, in the midst of that super casual conversation, boom! Falcon wings. Oh my God! New layers to the MCU. Awesome technology.
Yeah. And again, I love how he's just now he can use those things as shields. And again, like him using it as shields does give me more like, oh my God, him as the new Cap would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, also in Winter Soldier specifically, I mean, I love some of my favorite bits with Falcon too. Are I love the moment before and after Cap's speech that he has with him, where he gives him advice before the big battle, where they both know. And again, I love how Sam, he empathizes with Cap, or basically, like, what if Riley came back and he was kind of a killer assassin? Like, what if his best friend came back in a way where he'd have to be in the position of putting him down again? So you can see the empathy that Anthony Mackie conveys, and like I can't imagine what this guy's going through, and it basically confront. And again, I love that Falcon, in a very honest, genuine manner, is just confronting him with the realities of, look, you may be put in the position where he may not give you a choice. He might be the kind of friend, the kind of threat that can't be, that has to be stopped by any means. And again, it's really nice. It's a really again, what I love most about that scene is that we use that they're on like a bridge, and we use the same framing as we go to the flashback where it's a confined space where we flash back to Bucky and Cap and see their connection, their bond there. So it's a really excellent little scene that again shows kind of the friendship now versus the friendship then, which is nice. And of course, the moment afterwards, I love Cap. I love the speech in Winter Soldier so much. I really do. Just that speech he has. Basically, the ending of it will always be ingrained in my memory here, where it's him going over the intercom, basically saying that, "Hey, Shield secretly Hydra," where he says, "The price of freedom is high. It's always been, and but I'm willing to pay it. I'm willing to pay it, even if no one else is. Like I'll do it alone. I have a feeling I'm not. I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to face it alone. I'm willing to pay the price alone. But I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only one." And Falcon hits him with that moment at the end. It's like the ultimate patriotic speech. It's so well done, so well edited. That whole sequence in this. It's in they have the patriotic Henry Jackman theme in the background, and then we have Falcon on the side. They're basically speaking the audience's mind, asking Steve, "Tell me, did you write that? Did you write that beforehand, or did you come up with that off the top of your head?"
Which, of course, is a great kind of culmination to the friendship they have. Like, because essentially what that is Falcon's power of words, which, of course, being, the support group is, a big kind of defining foreshadow for that, is what ultimately sort of, not necessarily saves the day, because there's a lot of factors going down in Winter Soldier, but it's definitely a defining moment in that movie. It's definitely kind of all right, like, let's say, the arc is complete.
Yeah. Of course, the Ant-Man fight, again, just being kind of one of the big crossovers in the MCU, big one-on-one, like you could like pick up any comic and just say, "Oh my god, that character's appeared. Oh my god." And of course, in Civil War, we have a few moments. Of course, we spoke to the dynamic of Bucky, and of course, I was watching the interview again because, again, basically it's closest we're ever going to get to getting that road trip we always wanted, because they had hilariously, we have that image of this little tiny blue car with with Bucky and Falcon. Again, they're not the idea with their dynamic is that they're very much like, it's like the little brother and the best friend, kind of like they have a little bit of, there's a little bit of rivalry, there's a conflict, there's a little bit of sibling rivalry.
At the same time, by the end of the movie, they're getting along with each other.
They are, but still, it's like very kind of like insult based, where it's like, couldn't you have done that earlier? I hate you so much. Where again, there's this there's a lot of, like, he gets it. Like, they're conflicted, but there's a conflict there, because again, when they're trying to get Bucky's head straight, Falcon is not trusting him very easily, because again, the guy almost killed him and ripped his wings off in Winter Soldier. He's not going to trust the guy easily. But he gets it. He gets the connection, because he gets what happened with Riley. He understands exactly what Steve's going through and why he wants this guy to get his faculties back. And doing so, again, there's some sibling rivalry there, and that's kind of where their dynamic is now. But these guys could definitely they're on a path to becoming friends, but most assuredly. Can you move your seat? No. They're just very petty. There's a lot of petty humor,
Yeah.
And again, if only we could get Paul Rudd in that car, like they do in the interview series. Because remember this.
Who knows, Dragon? Maybe he's in the car.
I know. Yeah. Maybe. Well, we know for a fact he's now, but how great would it be, folks? Again, both they kept that car afterwards. I don't know.
Anyways,
I'm just saying, like on Jimmy
like a
Kimmel.
Marvel one-off, like, hey guys, I was here the whole time. I was going on this cool road trip.
Remember, Jimmy Kimmel had all four of them. Literally, like our dream assemblement of these characters. All four of them were like doing interview, and they're kind of like staged. They're sitting very much like they would be sitting in a car, essentially, two in the front, two in the back. It just looked. Oh, that's great. They're having so much fun. And of course, he's on Cap's side right from the get go. We're like, okay, Bucky's back, he's returned, and he says, you don't have to do this with me. He says, just tell me, are we the good guys or the bad guys? Because whoever shoots at you usually shoots at me.
Yeah.
And again, Falcon's there for better or worse. He's going to be there on Steve's side. But we have a very important moment. Speaking of all the roadie we've been speaking of this evening. I love the detail. I've always loved the detail. It's a small thing, but I think it's important that in the heat of Falcon trying to prevent Iron Man and War Machine from catching up to the Quinjet, so that Bucky and Cap could get away to to save the day, essentially, to defeat Zemo. When War Machine goes down, when he's kind of knocked out of the air, when the suit goes dead, and he's kind of plummeting to the ground. I love that Falcon just stops what he's doing. He and Iron Man are both racing down there to save him as fast as he can. And there's that moment where they're both too late, and Falcon, he lands on the ground. He apologizes, like, "I'm sorry." And again, he means that full-heartedly, and he risks his own capture doing that. But he's there to make sure, again, no man gets left behind, whether he's the enemy or not. It's an important moment for him.
No, I'm glad you bring that up, Drag, because of course that's in the midst of the airport scene, and there's so much else going on in the middle of the airport scene, but it's a very humanizing moment. It does go by quickly. Tony Stark very quickly, harshly writes it off. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. It is a very noble gesture on his part, and it's a small gesture, but at the same time, it shows the type of man that Falcon is. It shows, kind of like the underlying reasons why we were discussing earlier, why Steve would want to give the mantle of Captain America to him.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Moving on?
Yeah, moving on.
Okay, so Impact today, Dragon, like I said, this is where I kind of wanted, I just think it's really cool that we have this character who's, like this and Punisher, I feel like kind of Falcon should be a supporting character. He should have a cameo in Punisher, Dragon. He would fit really well into Punisher.
If only they weren't chicken about crossing him over,
I know.
Because again, we could have Spider-Man and Daredevil, and we could have Falcon and Punisher. We could even have Cap and Punisher, darn it.
Anyways.
We could! Anyway.
I just think it's really cool that through all this, through the wonky history and comic books and everything, that we've ended up with kind of one of the most bulletproof, like critic-proof characters in the MCU. Everyone loves this guy. He's never the main shining focus by any means, but he's always a great supporting role. Winter Soldier is kind of his opus so far, but he was also terrific in Civil War, which proves that Winter Soldier wasn't just a one-hit wonder for him. And I'm sure we'll see him do great things in Infinity War as well moving forward and, going into the future. Of course, as you said, Dragon, I feel like a very real possibility going forward is him adopting the Cap mantle himself post Infinity War, maybe post Avengers 4. I just think that, as I keep mentioning, as I keep stressing here, I love the idea of Falcon being sort of the everyday guy. Like, what if you ran into Captain America? What if it was your responsibility to help Captain America? Would you rise up to the challenge? That's essentially what Sam Wilson represents for me, Dragon. Yeah. Hello? Oh boy. Dragon?
Hello?
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, what was the last thing you heard? You kind of cut out there.
Oh, I did? Well, I heard you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but there was kind of like an awkward silence there for a second.
Oh. Well,
anyways.
Well, it was like a dramatic pause, but okay. Anyway. All right. Okay, so Falcon. Now, looking at it from kind of the Black history context as well as just what he means to so many people. I love that. Falcon. Easily, a misconception could be had where he is where he's the token sidekick or simply the cool black friend. Where he's not. He's not the token sidekick. He's not he's not just the cool black friend. He's cool because
cool black friend, but I mean, there's so much more to him than that.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying he's.
That's what I'm saying, Drake. Let's not write him off. He is black. He is very cool. He is a damn good friend, but
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that easily people. That's like the only thing you could really say against him. Which really, again, there's no precedent for. Where again, absolutely, he's cool because Anthony Mackie is so charismatic and fun. Falcon as a character embodies things like moving forward from Lost and moving from your past. Post. He's moving forward from Lost and your past, and Steve and himself are healing from losing friends and making new friends. A new life on and off the battlefield. Again, he indoctrinates Falcon into the battlefield. Donning his wings and donning a guise of Falcon. where off the battlefield, again, they're helping each other kind of get through get through the trauma they've been through and kind of adjust to life, again, off the battlefield, but they kind of found balance in a way through their friendship. And he represents he's the perfect representation of the backup and support you want in and out of the battlefield, as a friend and as as a companion in battle, which leads to which again leads to him being very useful. I love that as a Marvel character, he's so identifiable in a rescue capacity. I love he was a character in the military, was someone who rescued people, and I love that that's the guy I could easily buy becoming a hero. I could easily buy that guy, being the guy you would want in the midst of all these battles going on. This is the guy who's going to be able to kind of swoop in and save someone, and can kind of provide, it provides air support with his Uzis and everything, but he also provides, like, he's the ultimate. He's recon. He's all sorts. He's every supporting capability you'd want. He's kind of the best representation of the military today. Looking at kind of the African American kind of superhero military man. He is that perfect representation of a military, particularly a military veteran. Again, the veteran connections.
Right.
He's not a soldier, as we said before. He's not just a soldier following orders. He represents that ideal of factoring in people before your country. He's the guy who looks at before factoring in your country and the big picture. He's the guy looking at the little picture, at the at the people who need help, the people who need help after the war, the guys who are going to be shell shocked, the guys who the guys who are crying for help, the guys who are again in need of someone, whether it's with a parachute or with a pair of Falcon wings. The guy who's going to need, he's the guy who's going to help you while this chaos is going on. He's the guy where you think he's going to, guy's essentially going to swoop in like Han Solo. Essentially, when you think, okay, I'm in the trench here, I'm taking out, whether it be a Death Star, whether it be like a Triskelion, or like these giant weaponized helicarriers. He's the guy you want in your corner. And again, lastly, I guess looking into the context again is that Falcon, I feel if kids were playing Avengers, Falcon is the character who, again, you could have a kid of any race, creed, or religion. No one would be stuck with Falcon. Everyone, he'd be a character. People would be like, again, you don't have to just be black to love or be Falcon. It's like that's the character you want to be like. Yeah, he's cool. He's got these wings. He kind of swoops in, saves the day. Like, yeah, he and Captain America have buddy adventures with him. That's the character you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, Falcon, I think, is just he's just delightful in every capacity. He really is. He's just these. Again, people have said they could watch various spin-off films. Kevin Smith has said we could watch like multiple spin-off films of Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson. I'm in the same boat with him. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that too. These guys. Again, Sam Wilson he always has, Sam Wilson always has my vote for whatever he's getting into, whether he's as Captain America, whether he is as Falcon, or whether he's just as Steve Rogers' running pal. I'm always there for Sam Wilson. I love the heck out of that guy.
All right. Well, that's all for now, folks. Until next time, when we talk about the heroes who made the leap from page to screen, showing us a world not simply black or white, but brimming with color as well as character.
With our next installment of Black History Heroes.
On your left.
On your left.
Don't you say it! Don't you say it!